It is Thursday, May 14th, the year of our Lord 2026, and you have witnessed history today. Here is the CIA director meeting with the Cuban government and negotiating with the Cuban government in real time, in real life. John Ratcliffe sitting down in Havana, 90 miles off our coast, with all of the history of the CIA, the Bay of Pigs, all of the intel operations, the Cuban Missile Crisis, all of it coming crashing down in this moment, in this meeting where we remake the world. We thought we'd had enough world-changing events with President Trump and Xi Jinping and the creation of trillions of dollars worth of new economic vibrancy throughout the land and hopefully peace. Xi Jinping saying that he is going to stop buying oil effectively from Iran, that they're going to help America open the Strait of Hormuz, and so many other incredible updates there in the Sino-American relations. But this is 90 miles off our coast. And if you know your history, you know that Cuba is the blackest eye of our intel agencies and our deep state. And for an entire generation, especially Trump's generation, Trump is 80 years old, the Bay of Pigs, the Kennedy catastrophe during JFK's term as president, where we tried to stage a takeover of Cuba. It was a nightmare. Many believe that's why Kennedy was killed, but nonetheless, it was an embarrassment for our CIA, an embarrassment. We got slaughtered on the beach. Everybody knew that we were doing it. It humiliated our country and our intel agencies, and I think they still feel the sting of that to this day. And so I want to talk through the significance of this, also framing up a specific generation that lived through the communist takeover of Cuba, which was not that long ago. It was like in the 50s. Cuba has not been communist for generations, and communism's only been around for 100 years. And so President Trump, here in the year 2000, 26 years ago, President Trump, one day Cuba will be free. I believe that you will have victory, you will win, and I'm going to be down here and watch you win. I'll either be the greatest developer in the country or the greatest president. Ooh, what is that? What a find.
Very rapidly. I believe that you will have victory. I believe you'll have victory sooner rather than later. And you will win. You are going to win. And I'm going to be down here and I'm going to watch you win. I don't know what capacity I'll be. I'll either be the greatest developer in the country or the greatest president that you've had in a long time. I'm not sure. This trip has been...
President Trump there speaking to Cuban population of Miami, predicting the future. Now President Trump's administration is going after the Castro family. U.S. is taking steps to indict Raul Castro, the 94-year-old president of Cuba and brother of Fidel Castro, in connection with the downing of planes 30 years ago, according to U.S. officials familiar with the matter. The matter is the 1996 shoot-down of the Brothers to the Rescue aircraft. Cuban Air Force shot down an unarmed Cessna aircraft operated by a rescue organization opposed to the Cuban government. There was no warning given. The Cuban government sources said the people knew what they were doing and they were warned, and the aircraft entered Cuban airspace. The occupants of the aircraft were all killed. And apparently they're going to go after 94-year-old brother of Fidel Castro. This would be a move to signal that the Castros have no more power in Cuba, that the family that brought you one of the most long-standing dictatorships in all of the world. I think Castro was in charge of Cuba for close to 60 years. That they are now, that they are done, that they're finished. And that's the message that they're sending. They're going to indict Raul Castro for this decision. He was obviously the top military officer behind his brother, and the two of them have raped and pillaged the beautiful island of Cuba. Cuba at one time was seen as the place where the mob was going to create Las Vegas. They were going to put Las Vegas there. They were going to like make Cuba like a paradise location for every American to travel to and have a blast. This is part of the plot, actually, but it's totally based in reality of Godfather 2. And now the CIA is with officials in Havana. And what are they doing? I think that they're laying the groundwork for a total and complete takeover of the island. Why else would you send the CIA down there? He met with counterparts from Cuba's Ministry on the Interior Thursday during a high-level visit to the island's nation. Complex bilateral relations between longtime adversaries, the CIA official told Fox News correspondent that Ratcliffe met with Cuban officials, including one of the Castros, head of the Cuban intelligence services in Havana, to personally deliver President Trump's message that the United States is prepared to seriously engage in economic and security issues, but Cuba has to make fundamental changes. During the meeting, the official said to Ratcliffe, and Cuban officials discussed intelligence operations, economic stability, security issues against the backdrop that Cuba can no longer be a safe haven for adversaries of the Western Hemisphere. Sources told Fox News that Ratcliffe emphasized the U.S. is extending a genuine opportunity of collaboration, as evidenced by Venezuela. President Trump must be taken seriously. Effectively, and this is the president of Cuba right now, and Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said his country will accept $100 million in humanitarian aid. He has been begging for meetings with the Trump administration. They have no oil, they have no food, they have no electricity, they have no power, they have nothing. The Cuban government wrote in a statement that it would categorically demonstrate that the island poses no threat to U.S. national security. Is that amazing? What a world. What a world. Look at this. They are saying that it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to have the CIA director here 60 years after the Bay of Pigs, where the CIA, of course, had a botched invasion operation. They all got slaughtered on the beaches. They thought that they could overthrow the island. And then they're going to indict and arrest a Castro just for fun, just like on the tail end of it. It makes a ton of sense. And by the way, benevolent future dictator of Cuba, Marco Rubio, said it best when asked about regime change in Cuba. He said, "What do you mean regime change? Of course the regime has to change. The regime in Cuba is garbage. The Castros are trash. Marco Rubio is Cuban. He's probably the one behind all of these plans. He happens to be in China right now. That's why I think it's such an interesting flex, because you take away China, you take away also like Cuba's last benefactor is China. That's it. Iran, Cuba, China, Russia, boom, all done. Trump ending the Ukraine war. Trump effectively creating stronger U.S.-Chinese relations than we've ever had today. And then Donald Trump taking Cuba off the board in Venezuela, right on our backyard. That's it. That's it. Here's Marco Rubio explaining exactly what's about to happen in Cuba. Yes, we will have regime change. And we'll arrest the Castros while we're at it to prove they have no more power. Incredibly baller move. Here's Rubio.
Regime change, but now there seems to be a sense that perhaps President Trump would be happy with a win, which would only entail an economic deal.
So you said there's a sense. Where do you get that sense from?
Well, there's a lot of reporting that
there's a lot of fake. All right, no. Any reporting on Cuba that you didn't get from me or the president is a liar, because they're the only people working on it.
Do you still want regime change?
I'm just warning you guys. All these sources that are pitching you on Cuba don't know jack. Okay, they're not in the mix. Okay. I promise you, they don't know what the hell's happening.
Regime change, or would you be okay with an economic deal?
What do you mean an economic deal? Look, Cuba's economy needs to change, and their economy can't change unless their system of government changes.